This morning, the mother of a D.C. man fatally shot by police after he allegedly stole a pair of sunglasses just can't believe it.
My name is lled Johnson, and I am the mother of Timothy McCree Johnson, born October the 28th, 1985, and his life was tragically taken on February the 22nd of 2023 by a Fairfax County police officer for allegedly stealing sunglasses from a department store at Tysons Corner Mall in Virginia.
As store surveillance cameras roll, 37-year-old Timothy Johnson walks into a Nordstrom's department store at Tysons Corner Mall in Northern Virginia. Police say he can be seen here stealing at least one pair of sunglasses. Within minutes, police say, store alarms sound, and officers are suddenly in hot pursuit. This police body camera rolls.
Black male, going towards 7.
It's shortly after 6 p.m. and dark.
Get on the ground!
Closing moments of the chase, it's not exactly clear what happens, but the two officers fire their weapons.
Stop reaching! Stop reaching! Shots fired. Shots fired.
According to police, Johnson is shot once in the chest. He's taken to a local hospital and pronounced dead.
And I'm gonna let Minister Johnson tell her story, and let's say his name.
Timothy McCree Johnson!
Say his name.
Timothy McCree Johnson!
11825, code 6, 105 North Avenue, 52.
My name is lled Johnson. I was born in 1967 in January in Northeast Washington, D.C. I grew up in the Northeast neighborhood. We lived on Childress Street, right across the street from Trinidad Playground. My mom had me fairly young, and so I was more like my grandmother's child. My mom and I had like a little on and off again kind of relationship, but love for sure was my grandmother, Audrey Baird Johnson, the unconditional love of my life. My grandmother had 4 children and was married, but my grandfather really was not around. And so knowing I was loved by her. And then I also had my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother who I was familiar with. And so I think being the oldest child and the oldest grandchild, I had a sense of self-worth knowing that those were the women that I came from.
Washington's 3rd Police District. There is contrast here. From Embassy Road to devastated 14th Street, a corridor of violence in the spring riots of 1968. An average week in this district will bring 40 robberies, 16 aggravated assaults, and a high incidence of rape, homicide, and arson. With drug abuse the source of at least half the crime, 80 addicts this year will die from overdose.
I'm not too sure if I was cognizant of what safety felt like growing up and matriculating, through adolescence, because again, there were some tumultuous times growing up in my family and some dysfunction. And so, like maybe many other Black families in the Washington, D.C. area, the opioid epidemic, before it was being called an opioid epidemic, had hit our neighborhood, had hit our family. And my grandmother had 4 children, and all 4 of them be teenage heroin addicts. And then from the Vietnam War through the 60s and maybe the 70s, the heroin epidemic had plagued urban cities across America. And then fast forward to growing up as the oldest child and oldest grandchild, I just feel like I took on a lot of responsibility early, having to look after my younger brother and sister, having to be the one going to the store. I was talking earlier about going over to Heckinger Mall before it was Heckinger Mall and it was Heckingers over there, and being able to write my own note to go to Sears and Roebuck. I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I could catch the D2 bus and go downtown when a 7th Street was popping, when it was Hex and Woodworth and Lothard. And so, we could go to the Howard Theater and we would walk home. We went to the Coliseum to go to Go-Go's. And so it may have been a lot going on in the DC area, but we felt safe to go out and to hang out and to, and to make it back home without anything happening to us. So when I first found out I was pregnant, I was in high school in the 12th grade. Believe it or not, I was probably on a trajectory to flunk out of high school until I got pregnant. I had just started hanging around the wrong crowd, and I had made honor roll actually all the way up until that point. And then when I started hanging out in places and people I shouldn't have been, I stopped going to school. But luckily, when I found out I was pregnant, I had those honor rolls to sustain me, and I was able to get back to class and graduate on time with my class. And so actually, Timothy walked across the stage with me. I was 4 months pregnant when I graduated from Eastern High School, class of 85. And so was able to graduate high school in June of 85, and then he came late October of 85. I remember my water broke, and I told my grandmother my water broke, and we hopped in a cab and we went to GW Hospital, and contractions had started. It wasn't a long labor, probably got there that morning. He came that afternoon. I knew he was loved, and I knew I was happy to give birth and to have a child and have a healthy baby, and his smell, his touch, and dressing him in clothes and all that kind of stuff. And probably just didn't have any sense about survival. We kind of just grew up together, learning how to make it work.
This is crack cocaine, seized a few days ago by drug enforcement agents in a park just across the street from the White House. It could easily have been heroin or PCP. It's as innocent looking as candy, but it's turning our cities into battle zones, and it's murdering our children. Let there be no mistake. This stuff is poison.
And then fast forward to the 80s, around early 80s and 85, when Timothy was born, it was the birthing of freebasing, especially in the DC area, and I'm sure probably across other urban cities. And so the crack epidemic had not progressed yet, but freebasing and folks learning how to cook cocaine and turn it into crack. And then with that came the gangs and street violence. My only brother was killed in the streets of DC in 1991. And in that year, over 800 to 900 murders had occurred in DC area. And the Washington Post ran an article and listed all of the victims. We could see silently how heroin had impacted families, but people were still going to work and families were still making. But when the crack epidemic, from freebasing had matured into crack, it just terrorized families and tore up the city. Timothy was a very loving child, very smart, very, very smart from early on. Very athletic, did a lot of sports and gymnastics, and very opinionated, but no problems with him going through, elementary school or childhood. He picked up things very fast. Again, just a very smart, bright-eyed, a loving child. Our little family organism went through some changes in that maybe when Timothy was about 3 years old, I got married. And then with my husband, I had 2 children. So then he had 2 little sisters. And so our whole family dynamic changed from it just being he and I for so long. Then here's this new person, and then here's a new baby right away. Then here's a second new baby. And then within those years as well, too, our family went through some dynamics, whereas I end up having to take in my sister's 2 kids in foster care. And so I'm in my 20s, trying to be married, trying to be divorced, trying to raise my 3 kids, and then take on 2 other kids as foster kids. And so that was a lot for 20 to 30-year-old Melissa. I was just in survival mode. It's just by the grace of God that I survived. And I'm sure we all did not survive unscathed. I can remember like one of my darkest times after my grandmother passed away. And I had moved into an apartment, 3-bedroom apartment. And I had all 5 of the kids. And I would just like be drinking and just be depressed. And I remember as a child what that felt like, growing up in an alcoholic home and having to deal with depression. And I can remember being in the bathroom crying one day. And Timothy knocking on the door. And I was like, you know what? I don't want my children to grow up the way I grew up. And believe it or not, I went in a closet and I prayed. And I asked the Lord to just deliver me from this state I was in. And soon after that moment, we started going to the local church, Carmody Hills Baptist Church. And we all end up going to that church and getting baptized at that church. And so Timothy was the catalyst for that pivotal change in my life, to lean on my faith when it looked like life was like closing down on me. And I just felt alone and I didn't know what to do. So the day I found out that Timothy was going to be a father, I must admit, and then looking back, I can see the parallels probably on my own life, because I was 19 and he was 19 or in his early 20s. And I was thinking, you are not ready. Like, life is hard. And so I believe he tried. Like, he always just had these high ideals and high ambitions. Like, he just wanted to make it big. He was a trash truck driver, or he worked in a trash company, and he worked at like a tow truck company, but he just had these high dreams that he wanted to be a star and he wanted to be big.
Squares, blocks, bricks, rocks. Y'all square niggas ain't sold no bricks. Ain't been on no block and ain't sold no rocks. Ain't bust no heads, ain't duck no feds. We at the table, we breaking bread.
I just don't think his life in this world could contain the bright light that he was. And so in addition to my grandson, Isaiah, which is the firstborn, he had his daughter, Sanaya, which is the youngest.
Happy birthday to you, God. Happy birthday to you.
And then it's a son in the middle, Marcel.
And I miss you, and I want you to call us.
And so he had Isaiah, then he had Marcel. But Sanaya, I think, was his child he got a chance to do right by. Like, he was with the mother. They were in a relationship. He had Sanaya from the time she came out as a baby. Like, that was his child. I think the mom really didn't want any more children and only had her for him. And she gave her to him because everywhere he went, he had her with him. And when he could, he even brought Sanaya and Isaiah together so the siblings could know each other. In 2019, Timothy called me, and he had a spiritual encounter. And he called me to say that, he rededicated his life to the Lord and that he knew his purpose in life.
You set off sensors, right? Yeah.
And so fast forward to January of 2023, a month or so before Timothy was killed, his life was, he was just going through some difficult times. He was supposed to be coming to see me, and he hadn't made his way over to come and see me. He would call me and be like, "Would you cook? I'm coming over there," but he just hadn't made his way.
Crossing over, guys. Get on the ground.
I had been waiting to see him for maybe about 2 or 3 weeks prior to him being killed on February the 22nd. And so I hadn't even had a chance to see him.
Get on the ground. Stop reaching. Stop reaching. Shots fired. Shots fired.
And so leading up until the wee hours of that morning when I got the call, when they came over here to notify me, I was just thinking I didn't get a chance to see my son before he was killed.
Earlier this evening, loss prevention officers notified Fairfax County police officers of a theft that was in progress. Our police officers immediately responded to the scene. They were led by the loss prevention officer to the person who was suspected of committing a theft. Our officers approached that person and he fled. We chased him. A uniformed Fairfax County police officer gave chase, and a plainclothes Fairfax County police officer gave chase.
It was a knock on the door, maybe about 1:30 in the morning.
They chased the suspect, the theft suspect, outside of the store, and probably a quarter of a mile or so later, the suspect approached a small wooded area, a small patch of trees and brush. The suspect ran into that area. Our officers continued to chase him into that area, and at some point in time, our police officers, both Fairfax County police officers, discharged their firearms.
I'm home alone, scared and frightened. A police knock when you hear it. So really didn't have time to get myself together. I'm in my nightgown. I live alone, and it's 2 Fairfax County detectives and a Prince George's County police officer. They showed me a picture and said, "Is this your son?" before they gave me the news.
He was transported to a local hospital and died.
So that image of the picture, was with me, and all I can do was just lay out on the floor.
Our major crimes detectives, our internal affairs detectives are out here. We're going to be holding this scene not only into the rest of tonight, but into the morning hours as well. We need to be afforded significant daylight to effect a crime scene search.
To have to bury your child or get the news that your child is no longer with you, it was compounding.
I do not know if our suspect was armed at this time.
I felt the Lord telling me to get my Bible and turn to a scripture in the book of Isaiah. And in that scripture, the words were that Jesus bore our grief and our sorrow.
The suspect who was shot this evening is absolutely very well known to law enforcement in the National Capital Region. He, in fact, has a significant violent criminal history.
They had already begun to villainize his name and talk about things in the past that the officer wasn't privy for. And so they were already painting this narrative. And it's just by the grace of God that no one planted a gun there. Because my instinctive thought is, say what you want to say now. If they says he stole some sunglasses, he probably stole some sunglasses. But him having a gun, he is not going to have a gun. Like, he is never going to be convicted or found guilty of any type of violent crime.
We will share with our community the body-worn camera footage of this incident. And our commitment to our community is that we do that within 30 days.
It was a production that the Fairfax County Police Department Communications Department had put together. They not only had the officer's body-worn camera, but they had Tysons Corner Mall footage attached to it as if it was the body-worn camera. And then they had drew lines and had pointed things like all ready to like tell a narrative.
Are you okay? Don't move! God damn it.
And then in the background, hear the officer tell lies to cover up himself.
He was raging. No! Oh my God!
Are you hit?
Are you hit?
No, I don't think so.
What happened? Hold on, wait. What happened? Hold on.
Are you good?
And so Timothy's conversation with the officers, and thank God for those officers that were working on him and trying to save him there on the ground.
We need an ambulance. Get him. Help him.
Was, why did you shoot me? I didn't have anything. And so, as God would have it, he gave his testimony.
I'm not reaching for nothing. I had nothing. Hold on. I don't have nothing. I'm shot, man. Please.
His last breath was giving his own testimony from the ground. Why did you shoot me? I didn't have anything.
Hurry. We got you. Whoa.
And it seemed like they were taking a long time, and he was saying, hurry.
Whoa. Hey, we need a chest seal.
Not a roll. Chest seal.
Chest seal now? Sir, what's your name?
Hurry.
Harry? I'm gonna cover it. Okay? Let's get a chest seal. It looks like one. Can we get some better light on there?
Yeah.
It's two? Okay, we got you. Kneel to me, please. You got to breathe. Keep talking to me, okay?
Keep talking to me.
Breathe. You kneel to me.
Like he knew his life was slipping before him. And so to sit there and witness that and feel the insensitivity of those officers that were present when we viewed it. And then we also knew that media would be downstairs and that I would have to give remarks. I didn't have to, but I wanted to.
They drew their guns, fired and shot and killed him. And only thing that they knew that he was accused of allegedly taking a pair of sunglasses.
And as God would have it, I normally don't watch Black history movies or anything like that. Like, I had enough of slavery, but I happened to go to the hairdresser, and in the hairdresser, they were playing the Emmett Till movie. And the courage of Emmett Till's mother to have an open casket after what they had did to her son embedded a seed in me. And so I remember commenting that no parent should have to view their child's last moments on the earth and come out and give remarks, yet here I stand. And so I'm grateful for the strength and the courage and the resilience that's in our DNA as being Black people and Black people in America.
This was an execution by Fairfax County police officers.
I saw the video the day before. And so on the next day, they were going to be releasing the video. And so I had so much anxiety because so many people feel like he should have been shot and killed. That's what a shoplifter gets. And so many people are pro the blue badge, no matter what they do, qualified immunity. And so I can remember going to drive down Chesapeake Beach to the water for some centering because the video camera was going to be released around noon. And so I went down to the water to just gather myself and get some grounding. And I recorded a video while I was there, and I just began to pray in the atmosphere down at the water. And after I got finished praying, I posted that video live on Facebook, and the Lord allowed 2 sheriffs to be walking on the pier at Chesapeake Beach. And so I went up to them and I told them who I was, and they obliged me. And the 3 of us stood at the pier on the water, 2 white sheriffs, a white male and a white female. And I told him I was the mom of Timothy Johnson. My son had been killed by the police in Fairfax County. But I told him I wanted to say something to them because I was not mad at the police, and that I saw them walking by, and I told him that the body worn camera footage was about to be released, and I came down here to pray and to center myself, and that I just couldn't let them go by without just connecting with them. And it was just so powerful to see the three of us. They didn't know me from Adam. The white officer, she gave me a hug and embraced me. It's just so evil to pit us against them when that was not what this was. You know, in a sense it was, but in a sense it wasn't, because officers will stand for each other, right, wrong, or indifferent. But this was one officer against what he did to my son. I was so grateful that I had that moment down at the water with those two sheriffs. And it was soon after I got in my car, I was leaving the pier, and a news reporter called me and said, "Did you hear the news?" And Chief Davis, when he was about to release the body-worn camera, apologized to me.
Going forward, I will simply be referring media inquiries about someone's criminal history back to the media. There's mechanisms that you all can look that up yourselves, but certainly I could have been more careful with my words, and to the extent that those words caused any harm to the Johnson family, I apologize.
And made the notification that that officer had been fired from the Fairfax County Police Department.
This notice was served today. He will no longer be a Fairfax County police officer. The criminal investigation continues.
Fairfax County went through the regular traditional grand jury to try to get an indictment. The Commonwealth's attorney found validity in the case enough to bring the officer to a grand jury. But in Fairfax County, because they are a Commonwealth, the Commonwealth's attorneys cannot go into the courtroom for the grand jury. Only the officers go in to testify.
Breaking news tonight, a Virginia prosecutor is requesting a special grand jury investigation into the deadly police shooting of Timothy Johnson.
And so the Commonwealth's attorney at that time invoked a special grand jury.
The initial grand jury did not return an indictment for a now fired officer in the altercation. An attorney for Johnson's family says a judge has approved the prosecutor's request to impanel the grand jury.
And with the special grand jury proceedings, they get to set up the case, bring some expert witnesses, and they also get to be in there as well too. And so we were able to get the indictment, and that's historical.
I think he would be so happy and so pleased that we're standing up for justice. We're standing up for him.
Inspired by her faith and her love for her son, Timothy Johnson, Melissa Johnson is back publicly pleading her case outside of the Fairfax County Courthouse, telling us she just wants a fair shake at the justice system.
You don't win the fight every time in the first 3 rounds. Sometimes you have to go the distance.
So initially, the trial was expected to take no more than 2 weeks. And ironic enough, when trial was set to start, I had already had a work trip planned. And I prayed about it, and I felt my God telling me, go on the work trip and take care of what you have to take care of. And I got you. I'm going to fight for you. And so the first week when trial started, I was not there. I was on my work trip. I had 3 God winks while the trial was going on. The first one is I'm up on probably the 30th floor, and a white dove comes and sits on my balcony. The second God wink is I'm at a conference. I go over and see some native Hawaiian persons, and they're doing a traditional blessing for the space. Part of that traditional blessing was to recognize a loved one. And so they gave us these rulers, and we were to write our loved one's name on the ruler. And we participated and gave thanks in this traditional blessing. And I said my son Timothy's name. And after it was over, one of the women who were part of the blessing came up to me and share with me that she heard about my son's death and that she showed me a group chat her family started back in 2023 where they were praying for that case and for my son and for my son's family, like all the way in Hawaii. How does that happen? I'm in a department store waiting on a friend to come out the department store, man sitting there waiting on his wife. We engage in a conversation. He's from the DMV area. I talk about me. I start sharing about my anxiety, what's going on back at home. He worked for the Washington Post. They covered a story about the case. His wife comes out. We all in the department store crying and praying together because they remembered the case. They remember running the story. And so those were the God winks. And so fast forward, when I got back, to be able to start attending the trial, that first day that the trial resumed, the leading attorney suffered a heart attack. He suffered a heart attack, and another attorney had to step up to take over the case in like a week's time to prepare with the other two junior attorneys.
Sergeant Wesley Shifflett is charged with involuntary manslaughter for killing Timothy Johnson. This happened during a chase in Tysons Corner last February.
And now it looks like the entire trial against him may be in jeopardy just as it was about to wrap up. Our Matthew Torres is live outside of the courtroom right now. And Matthew, what happened there today?
Well, Zoe, during her closing argument, the prosecutor showed Sergeant Wesley Shifflett's body cam footage the night he shot and killed Timothy Johnson. And really, that moment brought Timothy Johnson's family in court to tears. But the jury was not supposed to see certain moments from that video after the shooting. They had never seen this piece of video evidence during the entire trial, only until today during closing arguments. Surprising the defense. Here's that moment shown in court.
He didn't get any rounds off. Okay. I don't know if he's armed. He was continually reaching in his waistband. I told him, let me see your hands, let me see your hands.
All right, so earlier in his body cam video, you could hear Shifflett yelling for Johnson to get on the ground as he tried to stop him for stealing sunglasses from Tysons Corner Center in February 2023. But from that piece of evidence you just watched, moments after the shooting, Shifflett recounted to officers a different command he gave to Johnson, which you heard there was to show his hands. This was important because Shifflett during this whole time argued that he was fearing for his life because he thought Johnson had a gun. During her closing, Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Nathina Tyler suggested that Shifflett knew he messed up and possibly made up the story that he gave those commands. But defense attorney Matt Noel says because the jury had never seen that video, the prosecution's argument presents an unexpected new theory that Shifflett is a liar. The defense says they would have had an expert testify how tense moments can affect an officer's recollection at first. We caught up with Timothy Johnson's mother soon after. While she does not want a mistrial, she is comfortable with the idea of a retrial if that means getting everything in order.
So the verdict was he was found not guilty for felony wrongful death, but he was found guilty for felony wrongful use of a firearm.
I stand today 1 year, 7 months, and 10 days since Timothy's murder, with the same resolve and fortitude of faith as I have since day one. Humble, strong, and trusting in my faith in God. I wanted to declare that what we have achieved in this wrongful death case in 590 days is unprecedented, and it is a miracle.
Even though it was not the most serious offense, you just don't know behind the scenes how many things we were fighting up against. All of the backdoor dealings that were going on and all of the judicial hurdles that are in place, the systematic discrimination and just all the other things.
We have witnessed the firing of the white ex-Fairfax County police officer and the death of a black unarmed man. We have had to request a special grand jury indictment. We have gotten a speedy trial, and all of the instances that have come up against us since this case and this trial began.
Up until this point, the accused had never did any time in jail. And so when we went back some months later for sentencing, the judge, according to the guidelines, sentenced him.
Together we stand for justice for Timothy.
And so that was on a Friday. I remember sitting in the court because to me, I just wanted to see him be treated like anybody else would be treated if they had been accused of a crime and found guilty of a crime. Up until that point, he hadn't had handcuffs on him and he had not been processed through a jail. And so I just sat there quietly, and I think everybody that was with me saw I wasn't getting up, and we all just sat there quietly on our side of the courtroom while all the supporters that was with him and his fellow police officer, they were on that side of it. They were shocked because, again, up until that point, there were about 3 opportunities they had to call for a mistrial. And each time they waived their right to a mistrial. And so to get that felony conviction, I believe they were in shock. And so I wanted to just sit there quietly, and I wanted to see him go back in handcuffs and be taken back like anybody else in that same situation would have had to go through.
I want to acknowledge that most Black and brown families who find themselves in the same situation do not get this far. And so I am grateful. On behalf of Timothy's father, Mr. Walker, Timothy's 3 children, Isaiah, Marcel, and Sanaya, and all of the people across the world that have been praying with me, for me, and over me since the beginning of this tragic incident, I want to humbly say thank you and hallelujah to Jesus.
And unfortunately, that was on a Friday evening. The governor at that time, in the middle of the night on a Saturday, decided that he would insert himself without anybody asking, because by his words, and I have a letter that he sent to me to prove it, he's going to tell the judge who sat there, who heard all the evidence, who combed through all the evidence, who heard all the testimony, who honored what the jury came back with. This governor decided that that judge did not sentence him correctly.
Governor Youngkin's actions by inserting himself this way were really not about safety of the police or safety of our community, but rather validating the rogue actions of a one Wesley Shifflett.
We did a press conference on that Monday when we learned of his release. And I didn't get out of Virginia before Governor Youngkin's office was calling me to say, or calling my attorney to say he wanted to have a meeting with me. And I just asked, what do you want to have a meeting with me about? Because you disregarded the impacted family in public, so you should apologize to the impacted family in public. And so we never had that meeting because he didn't want to say, but that week in the mail, I got a handwritten letter from him apologizing and giving his rationalization of why he wrongfully inserted himself, in my words. To me, justice is a word that's individually defined. Justice does not bring back your lost child or loved one back. So then it has to be individually defined as to how to make amends to the person who has been egregiously impacted.
We of Memphis are deeply saddened by the tragic event that has just occurred in our city, and we extend our deepest sympathies to Dr. King's family.
Justice is being able to fairly and equitably process through a judicial system. In a way that's without prejudice, in a way that's without bias, in a way that's without any backdoor deals, and in a way that is not discriminatory based on the color of your skin.
Really gonna miss you. It's gonna be different without you.
In the days since Timothy has passed, it gets a little bit better every day. And I just see better to say, manageable emotionally.
For the rest of my life, I'm gonna be thinking about you.
Prayer has been a strong core and anchor for me.
Heart and soul. I miss you, my buddy.
Therapy also has been something that has been beneficial to help me manage grief and emotions.
We'll never end. In your finest hours, I was there with you.
I know when to preserve my energy or when to go get grounded. And I give myself permission to cry if I need to cry.
We heard him calling your name.
I don't show up every day like I know how it's going to be for me. I show up and embrace each day as a new day. But one thing I do know is however the day presents itself or unfolds, I have the tools that I need to manage the emotions, however they show up, to get me through that day. Grief will suck the life out of you. It will spiral you down into a hole that you'll feel like you want to just climb in it and die. And we've seen that all too often in funerals when people want to get into the casket with their loved ones. It will make you feel that way. And so I give myself permission to grieve. And so I welcome my grief now. And the other thing I will say that I found solace in helping other people. If I had one thing to say to my son today, I would say, Timothy, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the man you were. I'm proud of your accomplishments, and I'm proud of your mistakes. I'm proud of your humility. I'm proud of how you walked out your life unapologetically. I'm proud that when people tried to tell you you couldn't be big, or you couldn't be a star, or you couldn't be a rapper, or you couldn't be a design artist or a clothing artist, that you held on to your dream and you didn't let anyone or anything deter you from dreaming big. And I'm so proud of you for living your life out loud and living your life unapologetic.